Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Melbourne Traditionalists podcast, episode 88.
88. Magnificent.
And I'm Mark Moncrieff from Upon Hope, and I have with me, as you've already heard, David Hiscox from XYZ. How are you, David?
Very good, Mark. Always good to be here.
Excellent. It's good to have you on.
Thank you.
Now, 2 days ago, Sunday, the 25th of April, was Anzac Day. And the Shrine of Remembrance, our beautiful memorial in the centre of Melbourne, was cordoned off so that people could not go there.
Yeah. If we think of how bad the ceremony of the Anzac Day dawn service has been getting, and we think, it couldn't get any worse. They found a way to make it worse, didn't they?
Yeah, it is.
Because you've had a lot of back and forth with people from the RSL.
I actually wrote to the RSL,
yes.
and I got a letter back from the president of the RSL,
yes.
and I complained about the dawn service,
yes.
And how politicised it was,
yes. and
how Dan Andrews, the Premier, got to get up there and talk about how it was, part of our multicultural society. And, in both World War I and World War II, Australia's official immigration policy was white Australia.
Yes.
So those men fought for a white Australia. And certainly there were exceptions. No one doubts that there were people who didn't like that. But the majority of them did. They accepted it and they fought for it and they died for it.
Yes.
And now, of course, we're told, they fought for our values. Well, our values today are not the same as they were 100 years ago. They fought for a multicultural Australia. No, they did not.
Exactly.
And it's just, it's a lie. And that's the part that really gets me, is that they're just happy to lie at every turn and then to claim that makes them morally superior.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they have clearly not taken your rightful criticism on board, because...
when he wrote back, he was quite forthright. I mean, he wasn't nasty or anything, but he was very forthright, and he rejected, absolutely.
Wow. Well, that came across in the dawn service, because I listened to it on the way to a proper Anzac Day dawn service on Sunday. And I heard somebody repeat all the same placards that Dan Andrews had. Like, he talked about how the Anzacs fought for multiculturalism and for democracy.
They did fight for democracy, but they didn't fight for multiculturalism.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And democracy, for what it was understood as back then, it means a completely different thing now. Now it basically is all about butt, sex and feelings. That's democracy. When we're talking about exporting democracy to the rest of the world, we're exporting butt, sex and feelings.
Yes, and if we went back and said, hey, this is the how democracy is in 100 years' time,
they would turn the boats back.
Well, they would have been appalled.
Yeah.
But at the same time, only 1,400 people were allowed at the Shrine of Remembrance.
Yeah.
Normally, there's somewhere about 15 to 20,000 people.
Yeah.
It does vary slightly from year to year. When the shrine was opened, when it was dedicated in 1934, 250,000 people went to its dedication. That's about 10% of the state of Victoria's population in 1934.
What percentage of the population of Melbourne would that have been? That's huge.
Yeah, it would have been huge. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
And and they cut it. They seal it off, and they physically sealed it. They had chain link fence around the entire.
There are
shrine.
photos of old Australian war veterans with their medals behind this fence. It looks like they're in a gulag. It literally looks like that.
Yeah. So apparently a few thousand people turned up and actually were outside the fence.
Good.
So the numbers were higher than 1,400. So those 1,400 were basically invited guests.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, why am I supporting these people? So we decided to have our own service.
Good.
And we held it in a lovely building that we have access to. And it was only a small service. We had 15 adults and 2 children, but it was a very personalised service. And it meant that because I ran the service, what I could do is I actually went onto the Australian War Memorial website, and because I knew the names of the people who were coming, I could actually find the name that was closest to theirs. And then what we did as part of the service was they actually read out their names and where they died and so forth, So for each person, it was a very personalised experience. Yeah. And of course, you can't do that even with 1,400 people. Yeah.
There's so much to that, Mark. That thing that you're talking about there, that reminds me of the great speech that Tom gave a couple of years ago outside the Box Hill police station.
Yeah, that was good.
Because he started that off by listing names of the men on the War Memorial just down the road.
Yeah.
And it was Anglo-Saxon names.
Yeah.
Names that, from my childhood, I remember growing up surrounded by those kinds of names.
Yep.
And it made the point of saying, we are those people. They are the same people. There were no chins. There were no Baradararans. There were no Oogaboogers. There weren't even any Stefanovics.
Yep.
Or there weren't even any Donateos or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it made it really, really clear, like, we are the progeny of these people.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And so when you bring in other people from other parts of the world, it lessens your connection to that. They don't have that connection to that. It undermines it, and it throws away what they fought for as well.
Yes. Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does.
And so what you're doing there, it's reconnecting people to the actual meaning of it, and to the importance of Anzac Day, because it's about revering our ancestors and protecting what they fought for. Like, we continue to fight what they fought for in fighting for a white Australia, basically.
Well, that's exactly right. And, my objective is even more precise. Yeah. I mean, really, when they talked about white Australia, what they meant was British Australia. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, you can have exceptions, but what we're told is that the exceptions are now everybody. Everybody's the exception. Yeah. Well, that just doesn't work. That's just nonsense.
Yes. Just regarding again, just the small number. I just made a point on the XYZ of saying as well, like, when we consider who the Anzacs were, like, and they got their reputation on actually being prepared to sacrifice their lives for somebody else. Yeah. And they were from a very hardy generation. From another time that we live in. Can you imagine just how insulting it is to these people to say, oh, look, there's just a sniffles going around, so we're going to have to fence off the entire thing just to keep you safe. Like, that's an insult to them. And from what I understand, like, the RSL is being absolutely slammed by its members over this, and rightly so.
Yeah, I agree.
I hope the whole RSL needs to come down.
Yes,
it's an utter disgrace.
Well, it's been like everywhere else. It's been converged.
Yes.
And I guess the only thing we can say is, hey, at least we weren't Western Australia where they shut down the entire state because one guy got sick.
Yeah. Well, that's.
Oh, sorry. He wasn't sick. He actually just he had the infection, but he wasn't actually sick.
Exactly. Well, the way they framed that is, oh well, at least we get to have a ceremony this year.
Yeah.
That's literally how they're framing it in the lying press. So they're not going to stop lying. So
ain't that true?
Ain't that true? Yeah.
Now I wanted to talk to you about some articles on XYZ.
Thank you.
Because apparently you're responsible.
Well, I don't know about that. I'll have to check with the manager.
It says by David Hiscox.
Oh, that's not me. That's somebody else.
That's the other David Hiscox. Well, let's talk about it. So he wrote an article, The Simpsons was always Jewish anti-white propaganda.
Yes.
Now, zombie TV program The Simpsons has caused a stir this week by turning its woke spotlight on British singer Morrissey. So Morrissey was the lead singer of a British band called The Smiths from the 1970s, 1980s. And while they didn't have a lot of chart success, they were very popular in the underground music scene and very influential. One of those acts that is perpetually regarded as cool.
Yes.
And Morrissey has, over the last, or certainly decade, maybe longer, been saying, hey, England should be English.
Yes.
And he's been being more and more vocal about that, which obviously we think is great. A lot of people don't think it's great, including the people who make The Simpsons. But you're quite right about the zombie nature of The Simpsons.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because The Simpsons, and this is where I think you've made a mistake, is The Simpsons has changed over time.
Yes.
And not just, it's not a direct arc, but it's gone up and down, up and down. It's like a mountain range. And also the nature of the comedy has changed, and the nature of what it finds acceptable to make fun of has also changed.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So of course, in the last month, we've had Hank Azaria, who is a Jew, and he did the voice. He's done many voices on The Simpsons, and of course, Apu is the most famous and now infamous. And he's come out after 25 years of doing the voice. Sorry, 30 years of doing the voice. The Simpsons are 30 years old, and he's come out and said, I apologise for, basically entertaining you.
Yes. It's ironic that because the character of Apu was portrayed as one of the few genuinely hard-working individuals on The Simpsons, absolutely devoted to his family. And there was even an episode where they essentially made the argument that Apu was more American than Homer Simpson because he knew more about the history and he was more dedicated to American values.
Yes.
So it's an example of how far the Overton window has pushed.
Yes. And, but The Simpsons has always had this radical idea, but it hasn't been, I say always, I guess over that 30 years, but it hasn't been constant. So there have been times where it's actually been pro-American, pro-white, not necessarily in the way that we would do it, but it still hasn't been anti. And you were saying that, it's very anti-Christian.
Yes. And
I actually think of the Jewish characters on the show, because people actually forget that there are Jewish characters on the show. So
not if you've watched all the Krusty the Clown.
Krusty the Clown is very Jewish, and he's a nasty character.
Yes.
He's always nasty. He's narcissistic. He's greedy. He's constantly pushing other people out of the spotlight so he can get it.
But he's not necessarily portrayed as being morally worse.
No, he is. He is portrayed as worse.
Not morally.
No, absolutely he is. Homer Simpson is not. He's basically Homer Simpson. His character constantly reforms, right? So he never learns anything, which is actually a very common trope in comedy, right? But sorry, I had a thought in my head and it's not coming out now. Krusty the Clown, one of the most famous lines that he has is, hey, what have you done for me? And Bart lists all these things that he's done to help Krusty, and then Krusty says, "Yeah, but what have you done for me lately?"
It's funny.
He's a nasty character.
Oh yeah.
But that's how he always is. Yeah. It's just sometimes it's more forthright, and other times it's more in the background. The other one is Kent Brockman, the TV reporter.
Oh yes.
Right, and actually, one of the funniest lines.
Hutz.
Sorry, Lionel Hutz. Yep. One of the classic lines in The Simpsons from the early series, or actually, I think it is the first season, maybe the second, where there's a riot in the town, and Kent Brockman's out reporting live, and he says, "Oh my God, the mob's gone mad. They've broken into the scientific institutions of the town, and then in the background the camera pans in and they've broken into the Christian Science reading room. I always love that one. But his most famous line is when he pledges his loyalty to our insect overlords. Right? Yes. He's disloyal. He's prepared to sell anyone out. Yeah. You know, he's very money obsessed. Yes. And he's a Jew.
Yes.
You know, so I think that the Simpsons are actually prepared to make fun of anybody, and one of the reasons that they make so much fun of Christianity is because it's still the dominant culture. But at the same time, it's acceptable to make fun of Christians.
Okay, so let's reframe all of this.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, all of it. So yes, the Simpsons was funny for the first time.
Oh, yeah. It's not. Yeah, now it's
not funny.
No, it's not funny. Yeah. No.
It
is a zombie, as you said.
Yeah. The thin end of the wedge is still the thin end of the wedge. And that's basically it. What we perceived as just a little bit of gentle nudging, a little bit of fun and games, a little bit of poking fun at ourselves, was the thin end of the wedge. The thing is that once you put together all of those anti-white, anti-Christian lines in The Simpsons, you start to see a pattern.
But the problem is that is taking it out of context.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not, because that's how the Overton window is pushed. When you consider...
No, I'm not saying that... I agree with you about the Overton window.
Yes.
And, you know, instead of... It's like if I, you know, make fun of you, right? Well, that's neither here nor there, right? But then if every time I see you, it's that it becomes that's something totally different.
Every time you see me, you do flick fun. But you're not trying to undermine my values and my own sense.
Well, you're right. Yeah. Intent is also important.
Yeah. I think it is in context. When you consider that basically the whole that's my laughing. Yeah. When you consider the fact that the whole of Hollywood is primarily Jewish owned.
Yeah.
So these people have they have a way of shaping our reality.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they make the prime focus the Christianity, and they make that the prime focus of ridicule. And they just it's like letting the water seep in over the course of decades. Yeah. And so once you see everything lined up, you understand that is actually the approach that they took. It took a lot of undermining for quite some time.
Yes.
And then once it has reached a point, then they can escalate. That's why, like, if you look at it, it would look like a one of those parabolic equations where the line goes quite low for a while and then all of a sudden it spikes up.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, this is when it turned. It's like, no, the equation was working like this. It's just once it reached a critical point, that's when it went up. When you consider the fact that to give a few examples from the Black Pilled video.
Yep.
Like in the early
which
days,
is included in the article. I haven't watched it. I meant to and I forgot to.
It's well worth watching, but I like the fact that you haven't watched it because it means that we can have this discussion. You've got Homer basically making a deal with God that he doesn't have to go to church every day.
Yep.
But he never questions the existence of God.
Yep.
But then you keep having these quips put into, like, just unnecessarily about the idea that God is dead. And they're not talking about it in a Nietzschean perspective as, you know, we killed him and now we're going to suffer the consequences. It's like literally, God is dead. There's no God. And the Christians, it's not simply that they're poked fun at. they're presented as being dumb.
Yeah.
In constant need of supervision, not being able to think for themselves, unnecessarily judgmental, and then you contrast that with the way that the Jews are portrayed, because it's a little bit like Seinfeld. The characters in Seinfeld, they're presented the same way. They're like, I can't watch Seinfeld because the characters are just so horrible to each other.
Yeah.
There's like it's not really an unconscious honesty. It's like, they're being honest about how they interact with each other. That's just the way that they are. But when they present Judaism itself, they present it as something which is like really something profound and connects to them. Like that episode where Krusty is like trying to find his father or trying to reconcile.
And his father's a rabbi. And,
and the quote that brings them back together is by another Jewish entertainer talking about how the Jews have been suffered all this persecution, but they've always found a way to push through together.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that narrative of the Jews is never questioned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, they're nasty to each other. They're horrible, sort of small people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're eternal victims who have always found a way to keep their community strong because they look after each other and have inward preference toward each other. And
there's a wider issue is that it's not really the Simpsons that's the issue, is it? It's entertainment. Well, it's American entertainment.
Absolutely, but that narrative is central to The Simpsons. So there's a clear distinction made between Jews in The Simpsons and Christians in The Simpsons.
Although Jews don't get mentioned very often.
Oh, they get mentioned enough, and like they seem to be in even in The Simpsons, they seem to be in disproportionately high levels of influence, like in the media, you know. Yeah. So and so going back to sort of the equation thing, the exponential equation thing, like yes, the last 10, 20 years, like we've seen just the anti-Christianity just ramp up completely. But that's just simply a result of the equation. It's, to me, it like they had a long period of setting the foundation, and that now they've been open about it because they can be, because the cultural influence in America has shifted.
You know, but none of the influence of the Jews would be possible if Christians hadn't allowed it.
Well, absolutely. But
continue to allow it.
Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong, and that doesn't mean that we should stop it, and that doesn't mean that we should oppose it, and that doesn't mean that The Simpsons is the way it is because it's Jewish. It just means, okay, well, this is what it is. And you're right, it's like, okay, well, we've been allowing this, so what I'm saying is we should stop it. For starters, people should stop watching The Simpsons. We should reframe the way that we used to see The Simpsons and say, okay, all those times that we thought that they were just sort of lovingly making jokes about us, they weren't. They were horrible the whole time. Yes, it was fun, but just like everything else that about my own life that I've had to sort of reframe.
Well, I see. Maybe this is a difference of perspective.
Yeah.
Because I never thought that it was loving. I always thought that it was part of an agenda, a part of the wider liberal agenda, an agenda that is, you know, older than us.
So you're saying that The Simpsons was always kind of like that then?
I'm saying all entertainment is like that.
Yeah.
You know, I first noticed
and that's what I
the
say
propaganda
I'm connecting it to the wider issue as well.
I first noticed the propaganda in the media in my early teens when I'd watch those teenage movies that were made or programs that were made for teenagers, and the bully always lost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that's not what's happening in my life.
Yes.
Why is it that the bully always loses? You know, why is it that the girl always goes for the guy who's, well, quite frankly, the loser?
Yes.
I found an answer to that. And the answer is those guys grow up to become writers.
Yes.
So they write themselves as the victors.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
But obviously every single show was exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, the bully always lost. And it's like, well, hold on, this isn't just portraying life. This is portraying a particular vision of how life should be.
You could overlay that with a racial perspective again.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the bully is the jock, is the racial Aryan Ubermen.
But you always take things back to the Jews, and it doesn't need the Jews for any of this to happen.
But like, who are writers in Hollywood, for example?
But it's not just in the movies.
Who are the weedy little writers who are writing themselves into these positions? Like,
but it doesn't matter whether it's a Jew or a non-Jew. The thing is that once that is accepted as the way it's written, then that's the way it's going to be written.
Yes. And so who sort of set that standard? Little Jewish nerds.
Well, I can't say definitively no.
Yeah. So again, like what I'm describing as sort of like a liberal ethos in the way that different character types are presented in TV shows. Fundamentally, like, you can say that that's connected with Jewish psychology, like their own concept of themselves, and Europeans, like they're presenting themselves as the nerd winning against the European stronger man, and once again they're presenting a false sense of reality. Like they want the beautiful European woman to be with them, and so, but in reality, like, she goes with the bully, she goes with the jock, she goes with the big, strong European man, but they're writing it as no, she's going to go with us. Again, like that still comes down to a fundamental Jewish psychology.
Well, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Yeah. I just think that it doesn't require Jews to actually produce the world that we're in now.
No,
but the Jews help.
Yes.
They're certainly part of the mixture.
Yes. A lot of non-Jews have taken on that psychology.
I agree with that.
And so you see a lot of, that's why we have the expression of soy boy. Like, you have a lot of European soy boys going towards those kinds of work.
Yeah.
And again, like you have the weak and the strong in every race. But like when it's stacked, you got to say, okay, somebody's pulling the strings, someone's influencing this.
Yeah. But I mean, also liberalism encourages that as well, because liberalism says, everyone's equal. Well, how can you have strong people and weak people? How can you have smart people and dumb people, you know? But then again, they also have the unprincipled exception where they say, no, it's all right for this guy to be smart, and it's all right for this guy to be dumb, or this, the hillbilly, he's always dumb, and you're quite right there. Who's the hillbilly? Well, he's a Christian. He's not, there aren't Jewish hillbillies. So, you have these other influences there as well. And of course, the Jews wouldn't have been able to get this influence if it wasn't for liberalism, basically saying, hey, there's no difference between them and us. And of course, now we have that. You can, the current madness is, Black Lives Matter, and trans, where everyone's equal.
Yeah. Is it time to talk about trans?
Yeah. We should. There's another article that you wrote, which I didn't realise that you'd reposted it.
Yeah, it was actually from 2016.
Oh yeah, it says here, 1st September 2016. It says, "Boy 4 transitioning to Dinosaur." I think. Do you mind if we read the whole article?
Not at all. It's one of my
favourites. This is by David Hiscox, obviously the other David Hiscox. Yeah. The XYZ can reveal today that a preschooler living in Melbourne is undergoing transition surgery to become a Tyrannosaurus Rex. In an exclusive interview with his parents, who describe themselves as daringly progressive, we learn that Jimmy, not his real name, has been obsessed with dinosaurs for the last 4 months. Some days he only communicates with us by roaring. Last week he chased the dog with his mouth open for hours, and we have caught him pretending that the garden hose is his tail. We think it's obvious he is not really a little boy at all. Some of our friends have even suggested he could be a missing link. I think it goes without saying that we are very excited. This XYZ reporter attempted to speak to the little one and got a very nasty bite on the arm for his trouble. The procedure Jimmy will undergo to become a dinosaur is believed to be unprecedented. Rather than a regular operating theatre, an aircraft carrier will be outfitted to turn a young human who is approximately half a metre tall into a 12 metre long, 6 metre tall killing machine with 60 bone-crunching teeth. We believe it is entirely possible that Jimmy, once turned into a real-life T-Rex, may kill us all and cause untold damage throughout the city. But who are we to judge someone for their lifestyle choice? We believe that nature has a way of finding a balance. the XYZ can also reveal that this is not the first transition to occur in Jimmy's family. It is believed his older sister transitioned to becoming a slut when she became a teenager, and his father is assembling parts so he can transition to becoming a fully operational aircraft carrier battle group. It's your XYZ.
I love that.
That is brilliant.
Thank you.
That is brilliant. And this is so it's so insightful because many more young boys want to become a dinosaur than want to become a girl.
I wanted to be a dinosaur.
I wanted to be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
This boy, Jimmy, is living my dream.
Yes.
And yours.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
I was going to become a dinosaur in grade 1, and I was going to eat my grade 1 teacher because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Because she punished me for when I was naughty. I didn't like that.
And if only you could be punished now for being naughty.
40% of this of ASIO's budget. Let's make it 50 people.
and you know, very few Jimmies want to become Janies.
Yep.
But nearly every Jimmy wants to become a dinosaur.
Girls are gross.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to be a girl. Like, girls play with dolls, and they have tea parties, and they talk about their feelings.
And they have girl germs.
Yeah, like boys, like, you know, like, you might put a dress on, like, once, or pretend to be a ballerina. That's about it. Then you want to go back to playing footy, and after you're just like, why are the girls so weird? I want to kick a football around, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I just pulled apart that first bit.
Yeah.
Because, like, we've been making this point from the moment it got made.
Yep.
That just because a boy exhibits certain stereotypes doesn't mean that they are that on the inside. And the irony of that has always been that, like, the same people who say that little boys who dress as girls are obviously girls are the same people who say girls shouldn't have to exhibit traditionally feminine characteristics to be like girls.
Yes.
So they use that when they want as well.
Yes.
So it's a great example of like, obviously, like, the most effective lie is to, like, put like 90% truth and 10% lie. But the other really effective lie is to make the lie so ridiculous and then repeat it over and over and again that people's minds collapse because there are so many layers of stupidity that you can't actually tackle it all at once, and people actually sort of withdraw instead. Yeah. And so that's what they're doing with the transgender argument.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it appears this is 5 years old. This article. It appears that this transition wasn't successful because I have not heard of untold damage throughout the city.
Well, maybe it was because, like, if there were such bad consequences, would you expect the lying press to actually report on it?
Are you suggesting that COVID-19, the lockdown, was because there was a rampaging Tyrannosaurus Rex raging through Melbourne?
Yes.
It really is the logical answer, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, this article is brilliant.
How good is the last paragraph? I had so much fun with it.
Yes, the father becoming a fully operational aircraft carrier battle group.
That's the other thing I always wanted to be. I was, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with dinosaurs and Transformers. I loved them. It's got to be pointed out again because every now and then I have conversations with women who will be like, oh, but, like, didn't you ever, like, have feelings for other boys and like, you sort of question whether you were straight or gay? And I'm like, no. And I guarantee 99.99999% of all men and all women are exactly the same way. And it's just that you've got this small amount of people in these positions of power pushing this idea that everybody questioned it at some stage, and that there's, like, what do they call it? Like, where it goes from one end to the other.
Spectrum?
It's a spectrum.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Most men do not believe in the spectrum.
Yeah.
Most men
because
are
it's
binary.
Rubbish. Yeah.
You're homosexual or you're straight.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, most homosexual men that I've spoken to, they're the same, right?
Yes.
And bisexual is maybe all right.
I have another word for bisexuals: cowards.
Maybe. But for women, the women believe in the spectrum.
Yeah. And
the reason they believe in it is because women they're very
stupid.
I was going to say malleable. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this. Every man has been hypnotized by a woman's beauty. You've seen a beautiful woman and you're just like, oh wow. So are women. And so that makes women think, oh, am I? But when was the last time you were captivated by a man's beauty? No. It's, in fact, for most men, it's hard to even tell when another man is good looking.
Yeah.
But for women, it's not.
Yeah. And you've summed up why men need to reframe the way that we approach women as well.
Yeah.
Because you said women are malleable.
Yeah.
And you said that we are often captivated by their beauty. So that's the danger. Often when, I know from my experiences in the past with past relationships, I would be captivated.
Yeah.
And then I would not be the solid man that I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So then I became as malleable as the woman.
Yes.
So we're supposed to be solid. No, it's like this. This is how it is. Yes, we might be captivated by the beauty, but you have to have your own frame. You have to be set about what you're about, what you believe in, what's right and wrong. Then the malleable woman becomes malleable to your frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the fact that we're seeing more women like this, who seem to think that sexuality is a spectrum,
yes.
Is a reflection of the fact that men aren't setting the framework for them.
And that's right. It's important for the man to set up the frame, and for the woman to connect to that frame.
Yes.
Because that's what a woman is looking for in a man. She's looking for that strength, and for you to lead, for you to actually make the decisions. And sure, she wants to make some decisions, but they shouldn't be the big ones. And they certainly shouldn't be the decisions that decide whether little boys become dinosaurs. Now,
I think the world would actually be a better place if there was more dinosaur transition surgery and less gender transition surgery.
Possibly. Yeah. Certainly less gender transition, absolutely. Whether adding dinosaurs to the mix is a great idea, I suggest you watch Jurassic Park.
Again, I don't see how that's an argument against transitioning to dinosaurs.
All right.
You've just reinforced my argument.
David has joined the Man Becomes God.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for that entertaining session, David.
Pleasure.
Where can people find more of your thoughts?
2 places at the moment, which I'm really pushing. Obviously, I always say bypass social media, come to the XYZ, xyz.net.au. We've also got a booming Telegram channel. We're in the low 800s currently, wanting to push it up to 1,000. Hopefully one day we can compete with Tom Sewell, who's on nearly 11,000.
That's astonishing.
Yeah, but I'm sure once we reach 11,000, he'll probably be up at 100,000. So basically, get on Telegram as well. There's amazing information, lots of really great channels. You get all the information that you need to know off Telegram, so get on that.
Yeah. For my thoughts, you can go to Upon Hope, obviously the YouTube, and also on Podbean.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's starting to get some numbers, so that's great. Thank you very much, Dave.
Pleasure.
Thank you everyone for listening, and hopefully I'll speak to you again next week. Bye bye.